Archie Sonic Free Comic Book Day Issue 1. We start out with Sonic as a captive of Eggman, shackled in every way possible, but to immediately destroy half the tension, Sonic's smug, being confident that he'll be out of here in no time because he's been caught by Eggman before. Granted, it's realistic for Sonic to get overconfident after all the times he's fought Eggman and his robots and hasn't even had to go to the hospital for it. So it makes sense in-universe, but it kind of hurts the tension to have him not take serious situations seriously just because he's a little too genre-savvy. He's so genre-savvy that the idea that Eggman is going to kill him doesn't even cross his mind. Because since when has Eggman been smart enough to just try to kill him when he's completely at his mercy? That's another way that Eggman's being an idiot here. Sonic then belittles Eggman's victory because he points out that Metal Sonic did all the work in capturing him. It makes sense that the one thing that could capture Sonic would be something as fast as Metal Sonic. It'd sneak up on him and grab him and fly away. Eggman holds a tiny wrench and says that if Sonic disapproves of him using the robot, he'll use the real thing instead. Is he talking about Sonic? And Sally has her long hair, which is good. Tracy Yardley didn't do as good of a job at drawing her with long hair as the other artist did, though. It didn't do the long-haired Sally justice. It's just something that I've noticed. She tells her friends that they still have time to mount a rescue mission for Sonic. She's reminding me of when Sonic turned intangible from an antimatter machine and she organized a disastrous mission to try to avenge him, making her look flawed. This will probably go well, though, unless Sonic breaks out by himself for no logical reason, because how else is Sonic gonna escape? She orders Rotor to take Nicole and monitor them during the mission. Why do they both need to do it? This is a job for just one person. Most of the times that Rotor was useful, it was thanks to his inventions, to the point where it's shocking just how useful he was. And it was very rare that he was actually useful on field missions being physically active. So it's not really a problem that he retired from field missions because the difference is barely even noticeable. Not helping out with his inventions or making any would be another thing entirely. So Sally saddles Rotor and Nicole with the useless jobs since they can't fight on field missions no matter how big Rotor looks. That's smart of her to do. She's being subtle by not using her at all and annoying them, but still assigning them to the pointless stuff. Then she tells Antoine and Bunny that they'll be providing offensive support. I can understand putting Bunny on the job, but why Antoine? Tails is insecure, wondering if he'll be asked to help, and Sally tells him that she and him will break into Eggman's lab and get Sonic. Oh, fuck's sake, why did he break out? Oh, thank God. Eggman saying that he was going to use the real thing and showing a wrench to Sonic, that actually was foreshadowing because it looks like a Sonic infiltrator was made, because Sonic immediately goes to spin dash at all of his friends. Okay. Phew. Good writing for a change. It's not like Sonic was just allowed to break out on his own. I'm sorry, but Flint's just got a bad track record with me. Let's just say I already have experience with Sonic breaking free on his own way too easily. The Sonic infiltrator apologizes to Sally for some reason and says that his next target is the King. I wonder if he's apologizing to her sarcastically to be ironic. And Sally says that they need the one guy who could stop him. I'm glad none of Sonic's friends are saying that they think this is the real Sonic and he's being a traitor. They're not acting all betrayed and gullible after all the experience they've had with infiltrator robots. They're not gonna do that, are they? Because trust me, this kind of plot could get depressing for Sonic very quick. Eggman tells Sonic that he's under his control now, so there's no more giving away his plans like telling Sally he's going to the King. Wait, what? It's not an Eggman robot? So instead of having the remotely logical explanation that had actual basis in the continuity before Flynn, instead it's Sonic himself, and he's being controlled by a Genesis controller for no reason at all, just because he has a thing in his ear, all while he's conscious. So he was able to warn the heroes he was going to the King, but wasn't able to explain to them what was going on right away. Huh? I get that this is a reference to the fact that you control Sonic with a controller in the games, but because video games doesn't make this make more sense than a Sonic infiltrator would. He has Sonic captured in his base, or at least he did. He'd have his DNA. And I don't buy that he wouldn't know how to make an infiltrator robot, because Robotnik already did. He had a whole infiltrator factory. He had a whole factory of infiltrators because of Tommy. Why would he forget how to make those just because other infiltrators were destroyed? This is so convoluted. And I bet that Flynn thought it was simply a brilliant idea because it wasn't what you'd expect. And I can understand that mentality, but seriously, keep it simple, stupid. That's a phrase for a reason. Did Eggman use a magical wand to brainwash him, cast a spell on him to use a curse to forcibly control him? He could be controlling him after that with the controller. This would make more sense if there was a combination of science and magic. Because taking control over someone's body with a controller without them even being roboticized at all, without them even having a roboticized brain, that's not something that could logically be achieved with science. But sadly, Flynn made up the idea that Eggman hates magic and would refuse to use it, even though he loves using Chaos Emeralds to power his machines. There's a different continuity of Sonic out there that literally has Robotnik say, "Science, bah, magic is where it's at." And that made more sense because of how useful magic was to him. He was literally transforming buildings with his wand. Not liking magic is objectively stupid of him. Sonic says he'll do everything he can to stop Eggman when he has no control over himself at all. And Vector, who's with the rest of the Chaotix, says that he'll do everything he can to stop him, fortunately saying that all as a response to what Sonic said. I was taken out of it for a minute there because I thought he only echoed Sonic's line back at him by coincidence as a meta joke. So does this mean the Chaotix know what's going on with Sonic? They better, because they heard what he said. Sonic tells them all that while they're strong, they're not stronger than the Freedom Fighters. I was thinking that this issue is just an excuse to give Sonic a fun fight scene with his friends, but sadly it's being handled in the lamest way possible. Sonic just effortlessly beating them with spin dashes and punches without even trying. Or rather, Eggman is while controlling him, same thing really. The point is, these guys aren't showing off how capable they can be in a fight, which destroys the whole appeal of the fight. Very recently at this point, I uploaded the issue of Fleetway where Knuckles fights the Chaotix. And that fight scene was handled much better, because each member of the Chaotix gets to do their own unique thing and show off. They're not just punching bags. Sonic apologizes to them as I seriously wonder why the fuck Eggman is letting Sonic talk at all, instead of controlling his words while he's at it. I was waiting for a serious problem with the story, and I finally ran into one. Eggman might have been able to use this to ruin Sonic's reputation by forcing him to talk as if he was betraying his friends. But of course that would have long-term consequences past this issue, and that wouldn't be remotely fair to the people who didn't get to read this issue because nobody bothered to upload it to YouTube. Sonic says that Knuckles was apparently the only one who couldn't stop him, and Knuckles says that Sonic might have been expecting Shadow, but he says it like he's being snarky with him. That kind of pisses me off because that's exactly who I was expecting. Because not only is Shadow a Hedgehog too, and thus he comes to mind a lot faster as a rival contrast to Sonic, but Shadow is way more powerful than Knuckles. He has Chaos Control. He could just freeze him in place like Silver and win immediately. Which is actually why it's a good thing that he's not in this story, because he'd make the fight scene even lamer than it already was. It'd be way too easy. Even if he didn't use Chaos Control for some stupid reason, he'd still just spin dash at Sonic and attack him, just like Sonic was made to attack the Chaotix. So while it is more balanced to have Knuckles fight Sonic instead, and I get that it calls back to all the times they fought in the games, I really hate that line of his because it's making fun of me for assuming it wouldn't be him. There's a series continuity error, which what a surprise, because Knuckles asked Sonic if he forgot about all the times he kicked him off Angel Island, which add up to literally 0. I certainly can't think of any time he did that literally. I think that would kill him, or at least force him to try to land on the tornado. And I don't remember any times he forced Sonic to leave his island against his will. From what I remember, anytime Sonic left, he was already done doing what he was doing there. Like, there was one time when he asked Knuckles for his emerald, and he said no, and Sonic left him. But Knuckles didn't literally force him to leave his island by throwing him at the plane. And I recently rewatched all of my reviews up to issue 159, at least the parts that involved the Freedom Fighters other than Sonic, so I could type down all the times so they were useful for a blog post. So I kind of have Archie's continuity fresh in my mind at this point. I still wonder if I'm forgetting something, But yeah, either Knuckles is really just referencing something that happened off-screen a lot, which is sloppy of a comic book to do since it's so famous for continuity and it's just gonna confuse people. Or even sloppier, Flynn flat out forgot that this kind of thing never happened on screen. Sonic tells Knuckles that Eggman's controlling him with an earpiece. For fuck's sake, Eggman. The minute he said that line, "Don't you dare tell him," his credibility just fell apart here. Again, why the hell did he let Sonic keep the ability to talk? And why did he make it possible for people to hear his voice through that thing, immediately giving the game away? He could have ruined Sonic's reputation. He's almost there. Knuckles and Sonic fight basically the way you'd expect, but without Knuckles using his drilling into the ground power or throwing thunder arrows at him. I've seen better. But this is a comic book, so the action scenes won't be as good as they could be without motion anyways. Eggman complains that the controls on Sonic are horrendous and he should have spent more time in development. As usual, I think in in-universe logic first, and the first thing I thought is that Eggman seemed to have no problem controlling Sonic up to this point. Sonic's fighting really well, except for the part where he's not creating a giant tornado with his super speed to send his opponents away from him, which would have won the fight. And he's not turning intangible or invisible either. Then I realized it was just a meta joke based on the fact that the controls for the modern Sonic games suck. But in universe, the joke falls apart. Eggman's clearly not having any trouble controlling his body aside from his mouth movements. Snively's really being antagonistic to him here. It's very jarring for me to see. Compare him to Eggman's other lackeys throughout the franchise, and none of them are this openly begging him to kill them or imprison them or beat them up. He has the gall to nag Eggman that he should have spent more time building robots and making a real plan. What? Waste more time building mooks that'll die in 2 seconds? And this clearly is a real plan. He's taking control of an overpowered Sonic Speed Hedgehog to use his abilities against people. What about that plan how is that not a real plan? Eggman naturally points this out to Snively, but if the writer knew this, he shouldn't have wrote that into the comic in the first place, because Snively has no reason to think his plan is stupid at all. He's not just playing games. He nags Eggman about wasting his time for no particular reason. I get that he's just stressed out because he hates working for Eggman and he's really sick of it by now, so he's just taking any excuse to lash out at him. But he's totally wrong. And logically, Eggman should be punishing him for this. This is totally unrealistic of Eggman. Snively complains about always being blamed when Eggman's plans fail, even when it's not his fault, and decides to make a move trying to take over the Empire by taking control of Metal Sonic. He is arrogant to think that he'd get away with that. Eggman's alive after this issue, so it's a foregone conclusion that he's not going to be able to use Metal Sonic to kill him, like would be the remotely smart thing to do. That's the first thing that comes to mind if he's able to completely take control of Metal Sonic that easily. Sadly, instead of the plot being made more exciting and interesting, instead Metal Sonic grabs Snively and intimidates him, and Eggman reminds him that all of the robots he has are programmed to remind him to be loyal to Eggman. So reality ensues there. Even though Snively was going to try to reprogram it, the robot realized what he was doing and tried to stop him. It's a shame. I would have preferred if Snively succeeded with this, even if he's not a likable character in the slightest. Because Archie's Eggman is just not a character I've been endeared to at all, especially after the Mecha Sally arc. He's not nearly as entertaining as he could be, and I'm just tired of him. At least it's sweet of him to pet Metal Sonic, but he doesn't have to. It turns out Eggman's been aware of Snively's overwriting programming. He doesn't reveal how he knows about that, though. Did cameras catch him? Did he find the computer files about his programming? He just knows stuff for no reason. He tells Snively to pull the plug on all his treasonous projects, and he says that he set Sonic to auto-brawl because the situation might need his personal touch. So maybe that's why Snively was written to go join Eggman again, despite him clearly hating working for him. Because his whole plan was to overthrow Eggman for himself, so that working for him would only be something he'd have to put up with for a little while. And then Eggman thought ahead and kept him from doing that. So he was stuck with Eggman, at least as far as he thinks, because he already left Knothole to go be with him. Okay, but him going back to Eggman was still the extremely predictable and lazy route compared to what Bowlers had in store for him. It should have been explained that even if Snively tried to ditch Eggman and go back to Knothole like nothing had happened, Eggman would just tell everyone he went back to him earlier and he'd be put in prison. Kinda tragic, or at least it would be tragic, if Snively had actually become more of a hero in alignment and was only joining him to overthrow him easier. Like the heroes want to overthrow him. Why wouldn't Snively think that was the right thing to do? Sonic tells Knuckles to stop him so Rotor can fish the thing out of his ear, and he also tells him to get Tails to build a jamming system. But Knuckles doesn't care about taking his suggestions and would rather continue the fight because he's a violent hothead now. Sure, let's just reverse his character development completely. He only treated Sonic like this in the comic when he first knew him. But by the time of issue 50, he'd ease up on him. They were actually pretty good friends. Tails burst through the wall, or a hole in the wall, and kicked Sonic while apologizing to him. But he looked serious instead of apologetic. The art is terrible for this because it doesn't have the guts to show his foot colliding with his head. Instead, it just shows this stupid yellow light bouncing off his head, which is really lame looking. They had no problem showing Sonic directly spin dashing into people, which should have cut them from his sharp spines and injured them, by the way. Knuckles punches him so he flies up into the air and crashes into the carpet, and Sally calls him out on how he could have killed him doing that. But it turns out Knuckles' plan worked. Knuckles' plan, for a change. That's at least a nice change of pace. Because the fight with Sonic broke the controlling device in his ear. They shake hands with Sonic calling his plan brilliant and thanking him. Then Eggman threatens the heroes with Metal Sonic, saying that he plans to take control of them with his earpiece devices, which wouldn't be a perfect replacement for Bossization because he'd only be able to control a few people at a time. He could still put them on Auto Brawl, but really, he pretty much have to assign people to control the other two. But yeah, like Auto Brawl, that is a helpful thing for him to have. Eggman says that he thinks they're all battle-weary, which Sonic clearly showed he was because of how bad a headache he should have by this point and how dazed he was standing up. But despite that, the predictable happens because instead of the comic having the guts to have the heroes have a real challenge against the robot, instead they all spin dash Metal Sonic to death in one panel with no effort at all. They must have been running out of comic space. But if Flynn had just cut out the part where Snively and Eggman were interacting, they would have had more than enough space to have a satisfying fight scene, which would have been a proper climactic ending to an action story, rather than just Sonic gets free because of one punch. Eggman takes off, Tails apologizes to Sonic for being rough on him with a smile, and Sonic ruffles his hair, forgiving him. And yet they viciously fight later on. Sonic thanks his friends in an overly saccharine attempt at a heartwarming moment that really doesn't suit him as a character. He's supposed to be an anti-hero. He wouldn't be the type to talk like such a softie. Though I probably got too used to other versions of Sonic that actually have a backbone. This is the bland, nice guy Sonic we're talking about. No edge involved. Sonic lampshades that Knuckles was enjoying fighting with him a little too much. Maybe from jealousy of Sonic, or he's just tired of his ego. Eggman ends the issue by planning to send the egg fleet after Knothole to burn it down, and Snively stammers out the idea when he clearly enjoys attacking the base later on. This is a convenient way to tell me exactly when the story is taking place, so I know where to put it in my playlist. This issue was by Ian Flynn, and had the convoluted idea that rather than Sonic being held in Eggman's base and placed with an infiltrator robot, instead, Eggman started controlling him with the controller thanks to an earpiece he put in his ear, which is at least close to his brain, so whatever, probably sending some overriding electricity signals in there. But Eggman really missed the perfect opportunity. He also let Sonic talk so he could try to explain himself. Though for no reason at all, he only tried to explain himself properly to Knuckles. So it's a good thing we didn't have to see his friends calling him a traitor for hurting them all of a sudden when they had no way of knowing what was going on. Though Sonic explaining himself would be pointless because Knuckles would have freed him from the earpiece anyways just by attacking him. It was a twist that his plan actually worked, considering that Sonic made other suggestions. But no, can't let Rotor be useful. Tails was useful though because he kicked Sonic and stunned him so that Knuckles could have the time to give him the final blow. While it was a menacing plan of Eggman's, and there's no logical reason he shouldn't make more of these earpieces and keep on trying to use them, Eggman really missed the perfect opportunity to ruin Sonic's reputation by carrying out entirely the wrong plan. Snively didn't point this out. He just arbitrarily called his plan stupid with no explanation for it. And all he did with his yelling at Eggman was make me wonder how he was getting away with it. If Eggman's being shown as intimidating here, then what's stopping him from punching Snively? I like that we see that Snively wanted to take control of Eggman's robots to take over his empire. It would have been a lot better if, well, first of all, he succeeded, but it would have been better if he made it clear that his plan to overthrow him this way was the only reason he joined Eggman again, despite remembering what a bad boss he was. I mean, why did he wait so long to join Eggman that Eggman had to go up to him himself and talk him into it? He had to have been staying away from him on purpose if he didn't go back to him right away. Ultimately, the whole action scene of the story was disappointing. It does make sense that Sonic would just spin dash at the Freedom Fighters and Chaotix and that would have him win, since he's so fast and powerful after all. They should have no chance in the slightest against them. But then what's the point of having them try to fight Sonic if their fight scenes will be so lame? The only one who got a proper fight scene with him was Knuckles, who isn't nearly as fast as Sonic, by the way. And that was it, because once Metal Sonic showed up, instead of there being a proper action scene where he was a big threat, the heroes just spin dash at him all at once and blow him up in one panel. And this is supposed to be a super intimidating robot? Snively's scared of this? If the last few pages weren't wasted on padding junk, we could have had a proper climactic ending to the story. Something that Sonic X does better than this, instead of Tails and Knuckles saving Sonic in just one attack. The story was alright. I did like the idea that Eggman was controlling Sonic like a video game player in an attempt to assassinate the king. Remember, that was his plan. It just got horribly sidetracked because Sonic's friends came to stop him. But since Eggman had Sonic in his base, him not using his DNA to make an infiltrator robot was really stupid. He could have made a whole series' worth of them. It goes to show you how overpowered the infiltrator idea is, and thus how stupid the villains are to not use it as much as they can. And it's not just an idea for Archie either.